Morning, everyone. We'll just wait a little bit while they organize the swearing in for the panel members, and I think we don't have the secretary for Treasury here. Can someone ring up Treasury to find out? Oh, that looks like Treasury now. Okay, good. Thank you. So we'll just organize a swearing in, and then we'll start. But thank you all for your attendance. Thank you, Wena. All right, could the the lady and the three gentlemen, could you all please stand? And if you can pick up the Bible with one hand. Okay. You've got a draft of how this short process is going to take place. So you repeat after me when I say I, and then you call your name, and then we shall proceed with the rest of the affirmation. Okay? So we can start. Thank you. I state your name. Do solemnly and sincerely affirm and declare that the evidence I shall give on this examination shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God. Thank you. You may be seated. This hearing is now open. I want to start by saying that it is good to see all the agencies, well, the key agencies that are going to be conducting the 2027 elections present here this morning. I welcome also members of the public and everyone else that is that has an interest in the next elections. Now, the reason why we are calling this inquiry is to find out about your preparedness. Three of you are the lead agencies that are going to be conducting the 2027 elections. And I think this is the first time in our history we are having an inquiry, a public inquiry, before the conduct of the elections. As you all know, given that in the 2023 inquiry, your agencies participated in this process to look at fixing future elections. Now, as you know, there was a report prepared. That report is prepared with your input into how we can make elections better going into the future. So everything that's in that report pertains to all of you and your role and the failures that occurred in previous elections. Now, this committee tried its very best to complete the report and to have it available for implementation in the quickest time possible. I think it took us 6 months, 6 or 7 months. So it's one of the fastest reports ever produced in this country, under budget and on time. And the reason for that was that we had recommendations and we had various election reports going back to 1960s. And that body of information already existed, so it wasn't difficult for us to be able to put together a report containing all of the deficiencies that you and your predecessors had identified many times in the past. And it was our hope that all of the relevant agencies, and in particular the issues with elections that fell under your ambit, would be rectified by this year. And I recall particularly the evidence given by Commissioner Manning and the former Brigadier General, what was his name? Anyway, Kina. In their evidence here at this committee, both of them stated that if we did not take any actions, then they were predicting much more serious problems in the 2027 elections. Now, that evidence actually came from our two key security agencies tasked with managing elections. Now, as you know, we are some 12 months out from the next elections, well, a little bit more than 12 months. So we are expecting, well, the people of Papua New Guinea are expecting that many of the issues, or at least the bulk of the issues identified by the committee in its recommendations, would have been actioned by now, by the various agencies concerned. And therefore, we are now holding this inquiry to try to put together where we are at, and for all of you to speak truthfully about your capacity leading up to the next elections. One of our key findings, which came from all agencies concerned, was that in the 2022 elections, most of the funding for that election was supposed to be budgeted the year before, and agencies were supposed to be funded the year before. Now we are at that year before the elections, and this is one of the key things we will be inquiring into, for you to tell us if you have been adequately resourced and that your capacity has been adequately built so that you will be ready to conduct the 2027 elections in a free and fair manner, where citizens are not coerced, intimidated, threatened, so that they can exercise their constitutional rights in an environment that is conducive for that to happen. So with that in mind, we have called this inquiry. Before we start, I ask my two colleagues if they would like to add anything.
Thank you, Chairman, and welcome all the key responsible agency heads and the public. The Chairman has clearly outlined, and I think the nation is also fully aware of the issues that we have faced over many, many elections now. And this is the year for preparation as far as this committee is concerned. I just want to highlight about 7 or 6 issues that the committee highlighted in the report, and I know the 4 of you have read the report, and that in your individual agency level under your leadership, you are incorporating some of those recommendations. But the obvious challenges that the committee in its consultation process found was that there was challenges in the electoral roll integrity. That's the big one. The integrity of the electoral roll has to be addressed. Number 2, poor logistic planning. Number 3, procurement processes were very delayed. Number 4, funding timeliness. Some funds came in very, very late during the election. And like this year, in 2021, there was no proper preparation. So that is why we are saying 2027, we have to start preparing. Therefore, we call you to respond to some of the challenges that were highlighted. Interagency coordination was recognized as one of the weak. Security deployment, another one, and enforcement of electoral offenses. Last time we called upon the team, we said, how many electoral offenses have been prosecuted? We still want an answer. So those are the key areas that the committee identified as major challenges leading to the lack of credibility of the 2022 National General Election. Okay, 2027 election is now before us. This is the critical preparatory phase. That is why the committee has asked you to be here this morning. The report has clearly demonstrated that the experiences from 2022 demonstrates that credible elections require structured, multi-year planning, predictable funding, operational logistics preparation, and intelligence-led security deployment, well in advance of the polling year. If key preparatory steps are deferred into late 2027 and very late this year, then your agencies will face a lot of strain. 2027 election will follow the same fate as 2022. And we were advised in no uncertain terms by your heads who were there managing 2020 elections. But if we don't prepare well for 2027 elections, it will be worse than 2022. We are here to make sure that this election next year is better than 2022 elections. That's a challenge. So you have to tell us, each of you, Treasury, you have to tell us, have you provided the right funds? Acting Electoral Commissioner, you have to tell us what are the areas in your responsibility in administration and management that you are preparing. Defense and police security issues are the worst issues in our country, and therefore our corruption perception index, CPI, is worse because of this, in this area of security. So the questions are very, very obvious. So I look forward to the responses that you will provide in this area, challenging areas that I have outlined. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Deputy. Now, in terms of process, I'd like to start this way, given that I think the bulk of the time will probably be spent with you, Ms. Wagi. So I will start with the security apparatus for the election. So we'll start with Commissioner Mitna, and we'll move across to Brigadier Opa, and we'll finish with Ms. Wagi. And in between, because a lot of these issues will have to center around planning and financing, Secretary Olka, you will be called upon to respond to some of these issues that may be raised by your colleague public servants who are sitting on either side of you. So that is the structure we will follow today. And so with that, I'm going to start with direct my questions to Acting Commissioner Mitna. First of all, just a correction for my benefit. Are you the Acting Commissioner or you're a Deputy Commissioner? Deputy Commissioner Acting. Okay. Thank you for that. Okay. So that is how we will start. My first question to you, Acting Commissioner, has your department read through the recommendations of this committee? Can someone help with the microphone, please?
Yes. Chair, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. We have read through the recommendations, and we made some recommendations too during the last debrief election 2022. So we are aware of the cracks, the faults we have within the security apparatus.
Okay, thank you. Now, seeing that your constabulary has read the recommendations, I presume you have come up with a strategic plan to implement them. And if so, could you outline for us those recommendations that you have managed to action to date?
Thank you, Chair. If I may run through a summary of what I have, and I think I'll probably highlight most of the things that you would want to ask, and then you can ask me after the short.
You may. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. First and foremost, I think the security apparatus consisting of the CS, the police, and the PNGDF, we provide the security overlay for the elections. We don't take over the responsibility for the Electoral Commission. We have a draft, what we call the CONOPS, or the Concept of Operation for 2027, learning from the experience of 2022. It's in the draft stage. It's a replica of what we have in 2022. We are now waiting. We are mindful of the number of electorates that have been included in for 2027. So we will be waiting for the EC to supply us with the number of electorates, with the polling booths, the roving stations, and then we can incorporate that. Our plan, operational, the concept of operation relies heavily on the information that we will get from EC. The biggest threat we face is the proliferation of firearms, and we are mindful of that. I think we've started preliminary into the threats, particularly up in the Highlands West. Highlands West includes Enga, Hela, and Southern Islands. And from time to time, we've been echoing the same sentiment about the single gun report. If only it can be tabled, it has relevance today. If only it can table in Parliament, and we can carry on from there. Although it's quite outdated, but I believe some of the key things in that report, some of the recommendations can be implemented. Although it's late, but going forward into the future, I think we need to look at the single gun report and action some of the items. A large portion or large chunk of the problems we're facing with firearms and ammunition can be resolved if only we take a step back, sit down, and look at the single gun report. Funding, we need funding. Two things are key to these operations. Intelligence-led operation. We cannot go into any operations without intelligence. We need our men on the ground. We've been doing that. The last election, I don't think we had support from NIO. We had to rely heavily on our PPC and information from social media. And that's not, in an operational perspective, it's not good. We need to rely heavily on the security overlay for the entire country and from each provinces. So intelligence is very important. So we need funding to send out our man intel to just collect information. So any operation orders that is drafted from headquarters or at the operation level must be based on intelligence we receive on the ground. And awareness. Awareness is something, awareness is the biggest, is also one of the two key things are important in this program. Post-election deployment, awareness and intelligence. We need to start collectively as not only the police but the Electoral Commission and those who will be, those agencies directly responsible must be on the ground to just to make people aware of the coming election. It happens once in every 5 years. It's one of the biggest operations we look forward to, but as it is now, from the security perspective, I think we are lagging behind in our post-election deployment. I can't comment on the common role, but for us, we'd like to know the number of polling booths, roving stations, so that we can implement it. I think for the 2027, we are prepared. We are prepared with our CONOPS in draft form. All we need is information and intel to be inserted into the planning. There is a need to cover slightly bigger budget in 2027, particularly with air support. Experience from 2020 shows previous budget did not cover some operational requirements. 194 million kina was allocated for the 2022 election. The 20% budget requested has not been submitted yet. One of the biggest operational costs in 2030 was the aviation-related support, helicopters particularly, not only in the Highlands but across the country, to move security forces. It's one of the major logistical, it's a massive logistical nightmare for us. Shipping not only the police, the security forces, but including those we provide security to, particularly the Electoral Commission staff. Commissioner Manning is currently working on international partners to support the movement of security forces to ensure fair and transparent election process. But again, for us as an organization, as a country, election is the key responsibility for the government. It must take full responsibility. We go to donor partners when the need arises, but I think for elections, it's one of the major things that happens every 5 years, and the government must take responsibility. Assistant Commissioner responsible for Operation Julius Station is representing RPNG on the IDEC. IDEC is this representative of all the key agencies that will be involved in the operation. It's not taking away the role from the EC, but providing that support to the EC, but at the agency level, it provides that coordination. So, ICP Tasion, responsible for special operation, is tasked on behalf of the RPNG to represent. IDEC brings together all agencies to play key roles in the democratic election process, and the RPNG is fully committed to support the IDEC. The RPNG has initiated the phased provincial deployment and readiness timeline for 2027 election. Again, we are ready. We are ready. All we need is information and intel to be inserted into some of the key things that need to be worked on. We will deploy in excess of 6,000 plus regular, including the reserve branch. That's from the police, but we have not included the number that will come in from the defense and the CS. But for us, last election, of top from Oman as a chief planner, we included about 10,000. We hope to increase that number to 12 to 15,000, depending on the numbers that we have. But we have recruited number of recruits over the years, but they are not ready for deployment. But they will be at base at the station. But we are using special force to do the deployment, particularly when it comes to operations. Election-related violence has met previous elections with an increase in manpower to support elections, and it is the key strategy, increasing our manpower, not only within the regular branch, but the reserve branch as well. We remain focused on this election, and to remain focused on this election. We have kick-started planning last year, and then we continue to support IDEC. I think January 12, I think, was the first meeting. And this time, I think we hope to work closely with the NI and those security agencies supporting Intel for us, so we can have an appreciation of what's, every province is not the same. We'd like to have an appreciation of what it's the security arising from each province. Security in PNG has changed over the last few years, a decade or so. The relatively peaceful provinces have now turned violent, so that's the change shift. So we cannot be complacent on particularly Highlands East or West rather. It's the entire country. So that's the biggest challenge for us, the security apparatus to focus on. But I think to sum up, you can ask, but I think to sum up, I think that's basically what I intend to bring to the table, and I'm ready to answer any question that is asked from the chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting Commissioner Mitna, for that report. Just a question on the comprehensive security plan that you have. Could you disclose the key components to the committee? And when will you formalize it, rather than leave it draft? This is the time to start working on it. We are tired of hearing draft plans. So when will you formalize that plan? Disclose the key components of that. Tell the committee and the country the timeline for implementation, and tell the country how does it differ from last plan for 2022 national elections.
January 13th, 2026, we started the preparation on the IDEC. That was the officer staff of the national elections. February 2026, this month, we've allocated 1 million kina of funding directly into the PPCs to help support with the election. Early law and order operation and risk assessment, tactical planning, commencement of coordination between the Electoral Commission and IDEC to map out resource needs. March next month, we start a large-scale training for electoral and security personnel. Mid-2026, hopefully we should get some of our accommodation in the provinces fixed. 200 personal barracks accommodation. With personal integration of the first batch of the new recruits, targeting about 700 plus into the provincial rotation, particularly up in the Highlands. And late 2027, we are targeting the formation of provincial electoral security task forces in all provinces to monitor online activity and local hotspots. Early 2027, it will be the early deployment of specialized units, including mobile, CID squad, CID, mobile squads, and the Kumul 2023. Up to now, we cannot deploy. We'd like a process that is led by Intel. We are relying heavily on our PPCs at the moment, but we'd like to have an appraisal of the entire country, provided by NIO. The details of the secret, it's a draft. When I say draft, it's there. It's there. All we need is endorsement, funding to kickstart some of the, particularly the awareness. Two things make up the post-election phase is the funding for awareness and for intel gathering. Otherwise, it's the same thing, a replica, but we need to know how many polling booths we will have in 2027. And that information will come from EC. So all we need information to fill in and we can launch early, particularly with the security forces.
How many times have you met with your colleague, the Defense Force, in terms of the preparations on the security so far?
I think this year we met twice, two times regarding the elections, but we've met constantly over the couple of, the last I think several times, particularly with operations in those operations that require joint ops with the defense. So it's an ongoing thing. We still maintain that contact at the operational level. As we speak, we have an ongoing operations up in progress, or at the operation level as we're in constant contact. Elections we've started, and then the idea is to embed one of our officers into IRC to help with the planning, to EC. So that's something fairly new we are doing, learning from the experience in 2027. We will embed one of our operational officers from SSD into EC to be the liaison officer directly instead of IDEC.
But you asked for the Singorok report to be presented. I'm sure as a constitutional force in the country, there are actions that your agency needs to take with regards to the issue of guns. You don't have to wait for the report to be formally presented to Parliament, but there are actions that you should take. What components of the report are you looking at to operationalize in preparation for the 2027 elections?
I believe the gun report has not been tabled in Parliament, and I don't have a copy. If only it can table and endorse in Parliament, I think it still has relevance. Some will need support from the police, but others, it's a collective effort from all the community leaders. So the report has not been tabled in Parliament. I have yet to see the copy, but I believe there are recommendations in that report that are relevant in this era. Thank you.
If I may, in relation to, again, there are certain things that the RPNGC is expected to do under criminal law in terms of enforcement. Now, it's my understanding that anyone who brandishes a weapon, not just firearms, in a threatening manner is actually guilty of an offense. You can correct me if I'm wrong. To what extent is the RPNGC, like we see on social media, there's a soldier walking next to a tribal warlord and they're both carrying guns. And there are police officers who will be walking next to a bunch of tribal warriors, all tribal terrorists or whatever, carrying firearms. I guess to me and to many other Papua New Guineans, that would be, you know, you've got a lawbreaker walking next to somebody who is supposed to be enforcing the law. To what extent is the RPNGC prevented, and what are the things that are preventing you from, you know, to carry on from what Honorable Puka has asked you, from making an arrest right then and there and confiscating those weapons? What is stopping you from doing that, quite independently of the Singirok report?
So I think nothing stops us from making arrests, and I think we have failed in that regard. We should have effected arrest there and then. That's the simple answer I can get. We have defaulted, we have not performed our roles, duties as law enforcement officers. Arrest should be made there and then. There is nothing preventing us, and we take that responsibility.
Operationally, what are you doing, given the overwhelming evidence that people carrying illegal weapons do so quite flagrantly? Operationally, what are you doing to, or what have you done to get your officers to act? It's one thing to say you failed, and we accept that. What are you doing to ensure that that failure is not consistently carried out into the future? As a force, I'm not saying to you personally, but as a constabulary, what institutional reforms have you taken to ensure that that practice of officers of the law colluding, cooperating with obvious lawbreakers, brandishing illegal weapons, to what extent have you acted to try to prevent that or stop it from happening in the future?
So I think so far, for me, we've taken two approaches. We've dealt with officers, we've gone out of line, and we've dismissed some, if not many, particularly with firearms. I think that's the only one we can do internally within the department. The other one, we have not stopped arresting people. We have been arresting people, particularly up in that part of the region, and on record we have made some convictions with firearms. Although we may not do the arrest there and then because of the limited number of policemen in that particular area at that time, but we have backtracked and made some significant arrests, particularly with those supplying firearms and those in possession. And I make reference to a few cases in Hagen and Southern Islands who were brought into Hagen to be charged and played back. That's one. But for us officers, particularly the police officers, we've dealt with. I think the biggest attrition rate within the police is dismissals. We have zero tolerance about policemen not acting the way they should be acting, so ill discipline. So we've done a lot this year. Last year alone, We've done about 76, 77, and that's more than a squad in the police. A squad is 30. We've done almost all the squad dismissals, and the majority have to do with firearms.
Okay, thank you. Now, what would you say to our people to assure them, particularly given that the elections are imminent next year, in relation to firearms? Obviously, it's an issue, and you are, as a constabulary, you've indicated in your plans that you want to do something about it. How are you going about that? One. Two, in terms of the public, you know, the public is actually worried about all of these firearms and I guess other illegal weapons. What would you say to the people, our people, to reassure them that, you know, there are actions you are currently taking or you intend to take in the near future to reduce the number of illegal weapons available within some of our affected communities?
My advice would be to return firearms, because I think probably, and I must commend Wagambi, ACP Wagambi on that, because through intelligence driven we've done a lot of arrests, particularly up in the Highlands. But if they don't want to be arrested, the wise thing is to return firearms or surrender firearms. Currently, I think the police minister is declaring a firearms amnesty, I think. We gave yet to, we will support, but that's intel. But for those in possession of illegal firearms, it's good to arrest, because Wangambi has done a tremendous job by not going making peace. He's going intelligence driven, is making arrest, and we've done considerable changes.
Well, sorry for interrupting, but isn't that your job? You're not there to make peace. You are there to enforce the law.
Exactly, sir. We make peace. Peacemaking is secondary to the primary role of law enforcement. So Wagambi, basically, ACP Wagambi is just enforcing what needs to be done. So based on intel. So we've done considerable since November last year, and some of the things we disclose to the media, others we don't. So I've been informed via WhatsApp every time what it's doing. So we, based on intelligence, we're going into those stronghold portals that we suspect there's firearms, and with support from the defense. I must commend the commander for letting his men supporting the SSD to do what they need to do. So we've done that. But for those who do not want to be arrested, just return whatever that is illegal, particularly with firearms, and those supplying ammunition too. There is, we have evidence. We have evidence now that there are people from within the force also supplying ammunition. So we are working on it. The last time I spoke to commander was last year December. So we are tracking some of our own men, and they'll be disciplined. They'll face the law and they'll be dismissed outright. So that's something we've
Just dismissed? You're
dismissed.
Not going to be charging them?
Both criminally charged and dismissed at the same time. So it's not double jeopardy. One is administrative, the other one is criminal. So we've had a discussion towards, I think, with the commander last year during the close of he had a parade for the close of the day, and we discussed, and he provided information to our intel team. So we are working on it, and we've done this work, but we'll be increasing the tempo in the coming, going towards the election. This year we'll be focusing on operational wise, enforcing the law to get rid of some of this. But again, it will be driven by intelligence, people with information, and the good thing is that people are reporting each other, so it helps us to do this. But we will extend our support, particularly for defense, to support us in this journey towards the proper election proper. So this is the post-election process. Although it's particularly focused on some parts, but it's leading to the election. So we will increase the tempo as we go. But again, like I said, we need funding to support all this awareness. Now, awareness is one. When I say awareness, it's not only election, but it's the firearm thing too. We need to continuously drive to the people that you need to return these things. Otherwise, it's no longer peacemaking. We're doing the arrest.
Yes.
And we are ably supported by the Counter-Terrorist Act, something that is contentious, but as it is, we'll see how we go with that.
I think, Commissioner, can I ask, seeing that we're on this agenda of illegal firearms, are you at liberty to share some data as to seizure of illegal firearms at this stage?
Sorry, sir, I cannot, top of my head, I don't have the information right now to share with you.
Okay, I'll just start again. Based on intelligence, in your view, what is the ratio of firearms in the hands of civilians relative to law enforcement agencies on the ground?
I think the firepower for the both security force are adequate for the country. But for those in illegal, there are some that we take, but there are some that are kept hidden and something lost and they don't disclose, and Intel sometimes it's forthcoming, sometimes Intel do not disclose some of these things.
From the top of your head, are you able to disclose the data on prosecutions in relation to illegal firearms since 2023?
14 successful, those that have been successfully prosecuted. That's not for the entire country, but that's particularly for the Highlands.
And do you, in your operations, have any targets before 2027 in relation to seizure, disarmament?
We will continue to do what we do. We will continue to do what we do and increase the tempo.
All right.
Election is only one part, but after election, we understand the post-violence after election, so it's a continuous pre-post, and after elections, so it's an ongoing thing with support from law enforcement.
We had 3 years. We had the last election in 2022, so the member of the committee is asking, since 2023, can you later provide the data?
Yes, I can.
Because you got 3 years.
Sure.
You'll still talk about after election 2027 to take action. No, we were asking since 2023, provide the data.
So I have the data, but it's not readily available. I will provide. Thank you.
In following up some of your responses, and again, the reason why we are asking about elections is because we know that it is a significant activity in the life of the country, and leading up to it and during the conduct of it, there are significant resources that will be allocated to, or will be, or should have been, I mean, we'll get to that later, that should have been allocated to your agency plus PNGDF and others. And those resources could also be used to ensure that future illegal activities is, I guess, minimized, because normally you would not have access to significant resources. You will only have access to significant resources during elections, and hence the line of questioning when it comes in relation to illegal weapons. So I want to ask that question. In terms of your funding, how much of the election funding would you need this year? Because you have to, as you said, this is pre-election, you have to get certain things in order, and in order to do that, you need funding. If you did submit for funding to Treasury, how much did you ask for? And how much did you receive in the 2026 budget, if you asked for any funding at all this year to prepare for the elections next year?
Thank you, sir. For this year, we have 700+ million for the recurrent and PIP, but we have not asked for the election budget yet. 2022, 194 million, but we had a shortfall with air support, so we asked. We will be asking for more on top of 194 million, but the first trunk will be for the awareness and intel. We have yet to submit that budget. We will soon.
And are you submitting that for next year, not this year?
We will submit this year. We have submitted the election budget. We have not submitted for last year because we understand every time we go back, they say, you have 200 million for PIP. So that was the experience. So we have the budget. I think from my head, we have not submitted the budget for the election.
Are you using part of that 200 million PIP, assuming you get it, to, I guess, prepare or build your capacity so that you can use that capacity for the elections?
Yes, we have done. We have done. In part, the accommodation for our police officers and the recruitment phase. And some of the funding we used for awareness and intel getting ongoing. But we have not asked for the election budget for 2027 yet, and we will.
You'll be asking for it towards the end of this year?
towards the end
Would
of
that
this year.
would that give you enough time to first of all access the cash, and then second of all to deploy or purchase the logistics or whatever else you need before the conduct of the elections, do you think?
We will ask at the end of March this year. End of March. Next month, end of March.
So that's your submission to the 2027 budget, right?
Election, yes. Procurement is the biggest challenge we face.
Hence my questioning.
Well, you keep on saying biggest challenge. We've identified a challenge. It's
Yes.
a procurement challenge. That's why the chairman is asking. Secretary Treasury is there. Preparation is this year. The challenge is well known. Don't repeat it. What are you doing about it? Interagency coordination. This is the preparation year.
How long does it take you to get procurement going? Let's just say you go out for tender, the various suppliers submit their bids, it goes through assessment. How long is that process when you finally award a contract, make payment, and then receive whatever it is you're procuring? How long is that process?
Normally 2 years. From my experience, the last one was 2 years, but in 2022, we wrote directly to NEC to bypass that process. So we took control of the procurement, and it did fast track. We wrote to NEC detailing our budget plan for the election, so it got all outside, and we went to the plan for procurement. We took ownership of the procurement, but we had a committee that oversee the procurement plan. So that was how we managed 2022.
So assuming, as you said, you are going to submit for your election needs to Treasury next month, unless there is some extra money lying around where the government can give it to you this year. Most likely you will get that money in the budget in November. That money might be made available to you in January, perhaps, unless government is paying other outstanding bills and not funding agencies at that time. So given all of those realities, do you think it's wise that you haven't, I guess, submitted for funding and then gone out to procure early? Why haven't you gone out early to procure, knowing these problems, knowing that it takes 2 years or whatever, and then you can, if you compress that time frame from 2 years, if you take over and get special consideration by NEC to bypass some of these processes, from 2 years, how short do you compress it to? 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months? What is it?
We realized, the police realized the planning phase, the proper planning, and we made that known during last week during the 2027 should have been planned a year before this year. So we realized the planning. So everything revolves around planning. We'd like to submit the budget with the planning, now it's a bit late. So we, like I said, we provide a secret order. The planning should emerge from it, IDEC or the EC. And then we can submit budget along that line, overall plan. But it's not only the police, it's the every agency that support the police. So in my statement last week, departmental heads meeting in APEC, I said planning, and that's why the biggest fear, planning was late. This is very late, this is late. And I said this should have been done the year before last or last year. And that's how we managed 2022. We
Well,
are planning.
that comes back to the point. We've already identified in our report that one of the major reasons for the failures in the 2022 elections was the late planning and the late submission for budget. That came from Commissioner Manning and Brigadier General Goina, and it's actually in our report, which you assured us that your department has read the report. And in our recommendations, there are very clear timelines on some of these things, including going out for funding, and in fact starting last year. So I'm assuming either, you know, those who are tasked with planning in your organization did not read our report, did not care that it was endorsed by Parliament, and just decided not to take carriage of recommendations that your own Commissioner Manning made to the committee. That's what I'm suggesting to you, and I think that's what we are suggesting here. And now you are telling us again that you're late, which was our fear as a committee, which is why it's in our recommendations that you start early. So, in light of all of this, how do you assure our people that you are ready to conduct the 2027 elections? I mean, it's one thing to say, look, we're waiting for the Electoral Commissioner to give us polling booths and things like that. We understand that. But the other thing is, okay, there are things like, as you said, logistics. You're going to need vehicles. You're going to need helicopters or aircraft or whatever. I mean, aren't those sorts of things you can do early? I remember in the 22 elections, our elections almost failed, except through the goodness of the Australian people. The Australian government had to intervene. Now, we asked the Australians to come and give evidence, and they declined, and really they can't because you know, they're a sovereign country. But they sent aircraft here, they sent personnel, I think they even printed our ballot papers or something like that. So, me like talk bisindigli, I think you me Papua New Guinea no semlo despa something na. Many of us are highly educated, and yet we are unable, you know, our level of incompetence is such that the Australians had to step in quietly, do all of this work for us, and then, you know, even to this day, we don't know the extent, except that we could see Australian aircraft flying all over the place to make sure. I mean, the Australians probably ensured that our elections didn't fail. Now, as a member of Parliament, I'm ashamed by that, given that we are, and I'm not saying I don't like the Australians, not at all. I'm just saying that it is this kind of lack of planning, which, you know, you may not toko sem, or you may not sabe, because, you know, the police and the defense force actually informed us in 2023 during the inquiry that these were the things we need to fix. And now we find on the eve of the elections, or something where you may at Togosem, you may need los tretim, you may not tretim. I mean, do you see where we're coming from,
Yes,
Deputy
yes,
Commissioner?
yes.
I'm not going to say that it's your fault,
Yes.
but you're sitting here because, and by the way, where is your commissioner, if I may ask?
He's out on duty travel to Australia. He'll be back tomorrow.
Okay, all right. Perhaps in the next inquiry, he will drop some of those trips and turn up so that the people of Papua New Guinea can be given some assurance that the commissioner is worried about what might happen next year during the elections. But thank you from me.
Acting Commissioner, if I could just ask a series of short questions. We're discussing budgets, and obviously whether or not the constabulary has been given allocations specifically for election preparation this year. I think we've established that that has not been the case. Correct?
So I have to consult the budget and see the budget books. I have not. I've been focused on the SPEP, so I have not seen the budget, but I have yet to confirm that. Thank you.
But just recapping your initial remarks, I'm going to safely assume, based on your earlier remarks, that there's no specific headline, no line item for 2027 election preparation in this year's budget book, correct?
Correct.
Sorry, Mr. YK is here, Secretary Treasury. Can you assist us with that response? Is there, just from the top of your head, I'm sure, is there a specific line item for 2027 election preparation for the police force in the budget books?
Wena, please, can we have these mics on?
Thank you. Good morning, Chair and the members of the committee, and thank you, Honorable Idu. The short answer, specifically for police, no.
Okay, thank you. So, but election coordination is interagency coordination aspect, although the legal or constitutional mandate is vested on the Electoral Commission, is there in your, and maybe the Electoral Commissioner can assist if we have difficulty in this reply, in relation to coordination of the elections between interagencies, is there an agreement or MOA or some legal instrument that governs coordination and implementation of the election process with respect to, example, logistics and security and all the other aspects of an electioneering?
So I think from the top of my head, I think the electoral commissioner is responsible for elections. IDEC provides the support. From the top of my head, I don't think they have the constitutional right to take that power from the commissioner. They only provide the support.
Correct.
They only provide the support to the EC. EC can take all this, but for coordination purpose, for all the line agencies working towards the elections, it's the IDEC.
Yes.
We are part of IDEC, but in some instances, we work directly with the EC.
Okay, so understanding that, so in terms of coordination of the aspects of security, logistics, and you did make me, which is something I want to come to, which is you pointed out the difficulties with procurement.
Yes.
For preparations and of course coordination and implementation at that aspect. Specifically for security, for instance, in all your, have there been any measures taken in your mind in terms of proposed legislative amendments or apart from NEC submissions or cabinet decisions, which is policy, is there any way this can be legislated in your, you think?
The last conversation we had was to take that powers off from the commission, and that's something internal we can manage, to give us powers to procure. I have yet to consult my FAS. We said this last year. So give us these powers, because from our experience, we applied for some fuel some years back. It took us 2 years for that to be approved, and that experience propelled us to write directly during election to NEC to give that power to us, the commissioner, so we can spend below, I think 5 million and below, so we can directly procure.
When you say commissioner, are you referring to the police commissioner?
Police commissioner.
Yes. Okay.
So he has the powers to procure things, particularly relating to the election. So the commission responsible for procurement, I think for me it exists on paper, but the reality doesn't happen that way.
Okay.
2 years is quite a long time for fuel alone.
It is a very long time.
Very long time.
So if hypothetically, for fuel requirements for 2027, we should have requisitioned it last year.
Yes.
Have
But
we?
for us internally, I think we've managed close partners with those fuel dealers, particularly the F-gas and fuel. So with fuel, we should be okay. We will be okay.
All right. Thank you.
Just two questions to our acting police commissioner. One is having confirmed by Secretary Treasury that there's no budget provision for your operation preparations this year. Are there administrative procedures that you and both of you take, Secretary Oike and yourself and the police commissioner, to identify this year's budget and move funds, which is the powers that both of you have, to allow the operational requirements in preparation for the election? I think it can be done. Second question, with regards to the report, it was highlighted, and particularly through the Defense Force intelligence, they mapped the country into red zones. Have you, as of now, in preparation for the this election coming next year, have you identified provinces and electorates that are concerned to you with regards to security? Have you or not yet?
We have done, sir, we have done last year. Since last year, we have deployed our officers into places. And like I mentioned earlier in my statement, relatively peaceful provinces are going to the dock, so that's why we're revisiting provinces particularly those that on social media. So we've done police work, not necessarily for the elections, but the general policing in the specific provinces. So we've deployed our men on the ground, working closely with the CID to make
Well,
that.
specific for the elections, have you established any specific preventive systems or warning systems in these red zones so that this doesn't happen again in these provinces and electorates that we know where the high risk is in terms of election security?
In short, sir, we have, and we've already worked on some of the provinces. The biggest issue for us, like I said, will be the firearms and ammo. But on top of that, there are violent crimes committed, and we're taking that. Basically, the general security, the red zones, So we have.
So can you confidently assure the country that in terms of these red zones, you are better prepared to manage?
We are better prepared to manage together as a team. Not only the police, but we appeal to all community leaders to come support police work, and together we can do that.
Just on that subject, Acting Commissioner, is there a independent report? I think just rephrasing, independent report that addresses or identifies provinces or districts or electorates that are volatile relative to the other? Is there an independent report per se?
Not from other organizations that I can think of, but from my PPs and divisional commanders, yes, they've been given reports of hotspots that we need to focus on, and that's basically internal police confidential matters that we've been, like Mr. Temu said, Dr. Temu said, we've taken action. But
Yes.
for the overall security of the country, we have to get that report. But we heavily relying on our PPCs.
Yeah, in terms of planning, I asked this question because it informs the question of planning an election. It would be reasonable to think that one would have a dashboard based on an independent report that identifies and isolates hotspots or areas, so that when resource is allocated or personnel is allocated and resourcing, those are the strategic areas that one must look at in terms of managing a safe, peaceful and fair election.
So I think we have that. Not I think we have that on our dashboard. We get monthly briefs from our PPCs, so we know where the hotspots are.
Is that something that can be published for the public's consumption, or at least for
Yes, we
election
can.
use?
It's something that we cannot hide. We need, like I said, community support. This year we have committed, like I said, for the first time, we'll be giving $1 million kina each to the PPCs to help in the operational, so they can focus specifically in the areas, in the provinces. So we have the hotspots, the weekly reports and the monthly briefs, and we know where the trouble zones are.
Pre 2017 elections, there was an independent report prepared by our partners, bilateral partners. I think the Australian government supported this initiative, and there was a official report published for purposes of election preparations in 2017. Is there something similar? I want to ask again, because it's absolutely necessary. In the event of, I ask this because in the event of election petitions that will come up, or election managing, which is highly volatile relative to the questions the conversation we just had earlier in relation to illegal firearms being rampant. Is there, do you think it's necessary that we should have one independent security security document pre-elections, so that would inform as a standard document, standard manual, if you like, adopted by IDAC and Cabinet, of course, before we implement or deploy?
So from the top of my head, we did not implement in 2022, but we can do that. It's vital. Electoral, everything to do with the elections, from firearms to, and even electoral officers too. So it can be done.
Should be done.
It should be done.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, before we move on, we'll direct some questions to the representative from the PNGDF, and we might refer back to you Dr. Mitna. I just wanted to remind you of one of the matters that came up, one of the incidents that came up during the inquiry that we had, which was important. And that is that, you know, there was the election violence here in Port Moresby, which was widely captured on social media, I think for one of the seats. And, you know, a group of supporters from a certain candidate walked across to Vision City and purchased bush knives, brand new bush knives, and they came out and started attacking supporters of one of the other candidates right out here in Port Moresby. Now, that question was raised to the commissioner at the time, and the commissioner indicated, and I think we had some of our other intelligence agencies also here during that inquiry. And the message we got was that no one was aware that that was going to happen in Port Moresby. Also in relation to the burning of the ballot boxes in 2 electorates in Morobe province. The indication from, I think, your commissioner was that you were not aware, none of the intelligence agencies were aware that that was going to happen. Now, I'm pointing that out because this is information that came from the RPNGC and it came from the PNGDF, and I'm pointing it out to you so that you can bear in mind, you know, the preparations that you have going forward, that this is what happened. And it shows a lapse in whatever you want to call it, coordination, intelligence gathering, all of those sorts of things. And this is, I think, the concern of most Papua New Guineans. They want to know that when they go to cast their votes in the next election, that there is you know, a decent amount of safety. They want to be safe doing that, and during the counting and those sorts of activities, the people that are going to be interested and involved, they want to know that there's strong security around that and there's a relative safety. So I just wanted to remind you of that because those are things that I now report, obviously. But thank you very much for helping us with some of those details today. I now go to Brigadier Opa. Again, it's the same thing. You will obviously be working with the PNGDF, and while I'm asking you that question, can someone come and turn on his microphone just in case, or is it on already? For the PNGDF, and I have to say, you know, the commander that was here previously, he gave us a very in-depth, and I was impressed with his contribution to the inquiry. One of the things he told us was that they received the funding late, your organization received funding late to procure the things you needed for the elections. In fact, while he was giving evidence in, I think, 2023, he said, and he showed us a picture of all of the vehicles and other things that the PNGDF needed to help with the elections. They arrived, I think, the week before he came to this inquiry. So in fact, none of those vehicles were available during the election period. And he told us that the reason for that was the delayed procurement. Again, we've had the same thing from our friends in RPNGC. Now, I have 2 questions in relation to that. Number one, will you be procuring some more equipment for the 2027 elections? If so, has that process already, is it already underway? If not, why not? And the other question, which is probably a little bit silly, what happened to all of that equipment, all of that brand new equipment, I don't know how many cars and everything, that came in for the 2026 election, 22 elections rather, that you've received? What's happened to all of that? I'm just interested in that, if you could enlighten us. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and members of the committee. So if I may, I'll answer those questions and also perhaps go back and just explain a summary, give a summary, and you can take questions from there. So with regard to your question, yes, indeed, we received the funding late. And when those assets or vehicles and equipment were purchased, they were distributed to all the PNGDF establishments across the country. And some of those were given to, most were held in the transport pool for use as required. And so many of those have been used over time and now require work on it to be operational. For our preparations, I'll just cover that in the brief what we have done. So for the Papua New Guinea Defense Force, typically we are requested by Electoral Commission to provide certain tasks to assist them to implement the election. So some of this would mainly 3 areas: for security, for their personnel deployed, especially at polling stations and counting areas. So that's one of the typical tasks that we do. The other major one is just transportation and logistics, particularly transportation of election materials and personnel to polling sites in the remote parts. And also where there are hotspots, we try and, we work that out, so we go to those places. The average number of troops we deploy on elections are around 1,000. In 2022, there was some other incidents that occurred that required us to go up to 1,500. So those are the typical tasks that we are required. But because of how we are structured and under the Act, we have to be requested to do certain tasks by the police commissioner. Even when Electoral Commission requests, then the police commissioner have to write to the commander requesting assistance, and that's how we get a call out for the election. And that is also where we decide we can do this, we can't do that because of this and that. So the gaps are also identified at that time based on what we can do to assist police. So from a budget perspective, in 2022, our operational budget from our joint operation was 98 million. And it was well justified in the document for those monies. And there were additional funding that was given to us, so was promised to us, so that on record it went to 105 million. And just to give you an appreciation of the breakup, the mobilization in 2022, we had 3 phases: mobilization, execution, and the post-election phase. So we had 32 million for mobilization, 48 for execution, and 25 million for the post-election. In comparison, for 2027, again, I have behind me the Chief of Joint Operations, Colonel Mark Kelleton, and his team have put together an estimated budget, I must emphasize. It's yet to our secretary and the team also are looking at it, but we have itemized it, and the total budget that we have estimated to request for this operation is 120 million. So that's additional 40 million from the 2022 budget. And also a key point to note with this particular budget is that the mobilization for this budget is 70 million, which is significantly more than the 2022. And the main reason is for us to prepare well, because for us, moving logistics and the way we assist the police and the Electoral Commission, we provide more or less provide the security bubble on the outside. So the task that we do to assist the Electoral Commission, having people at the polling sites, are like directly involved But we normally would stay back when situations escalate. We would have the ability to provide the reinforcement because we just cannot be everywhere. And the other main task we do is we focus on the vital assets, government property, so on and so forth. So we don't lose sight of these things. Whatever happens, we must make sure that electricity flows, water flows. So these are kind of the operations that are the tasks that we consider when we are involved in election operations. So mobilization is very important for us. And Chair and committee members, there's two types of capabilities we help, and logistic is the biggest component, and our budget is mainly to rehabilitate our current capabilities, especially our aircrafts and the ships. Although our partners assist with maintenance of this, particularly the ships, we are also required to have our own patrols in between. And they have a cycle that we depend, and we can't depend on the cycle. If the ship is down when that program is not yet, it's not the time for its maintenance, then we have to find funds to do that. And that's why we put in a large component to make sure those key assets, particularly the ships and the aircraft. Currently, we only have 3 small aircrafts that are operational. They can't do much. They are mainly for reconnaissance and almost, if you like, just flying 3 or 4 people to the areas of operation. We are now in the process of recovering one of our CASA aircrafts, and we are waiting for it to be tested here and then flown to Indonesia in Bandung to do a full service. So we are hoping that that could be done before the election. So it will assist with logistics. Although our partners come to assist us, chair and committee members, particularly with rotary wind support, which is the main type of support that we need for elections in our country because of the terrain. We do have an arrangement, but that's a contractual arrangement with a civilian company. So they have their own policies. So if an incident happens in an area where they consider it high risk, then they can't fly. So we need to have our own assets to do that, or have a backup plan. So, and we normally discuss with the police to ensure that we have that, that redundancy, so that if they cannot support, we will come in over the top and use our own resources. So that's as far as I can go for now. But we do have a budget. You've itemized it, and we hope that we can be funded in earnest, so we can prepare well. I think if we prepare well, we will do better than what we did in 2022. And at the moment, our partners are also, we will be doing this planning considering the assistance in it. So this budget that we are giving may be reduced because of if they affirm their support with the assets they will bring to support us. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Brigadier. Questions?
Thank you, Brigadier. To us as a committee, the Defense Force has always been very well prepared in most of the elections. So we commend you highly for the structures that you operate, and particularly now focusing on preparing better for 2027 elections. In terms of the joint operations between yourself and the RPNGC, have you signed an agreement already, or are you in the process of planning the operational agreement signing? Or is there one that you are talking about?
Normally, it would come under the task. So, for example, if we are deployed to the highlands, then if we are in a particular province, there's an assistant commissioner of police that actually heads the operation. So all our elements are kind of assigned under him, and we conduct. But the the 70 million that I've mentioned for this particular election, a good component of that will be used for our shaping operations, which have already commenced. And we kind of piggybacked on some of the SOE arrangements that are currently in place. And having our soldiers there, we are able to do our, we would like to say, use more of a soft power approach just to, prepare the area of operation when we do go in. So there's no agreement, Honorable Committee Member.
In terms of intelligence, from the briefings that we have gathered, it appears that PNG Defense Force intelligence gathering is a bit more advanced than the other intelligence agencies, including NIO as well as the RPNGC. In the process of gathering and analyzing intelligence, how do you share this intelligence information? And with Chairman's earlier comment on the NCD experience, nobody knew that it would happen, and so sharing, and how do you respond quickly?
While we have the reach there to collect the information, I would say that the sharing to enable the response is something that we really have to improve in, because we do have the reach in most of the provinces. We have people there according to our structures, and they do the collection, and and they normally speak to the in the provinces. There are provincial intelligence committees within the provincial administration structure, so our people are encouraged to share those information also, but of course ensuring that the headquarters is aware and they conform to our security protocols. But we do share information with our police colleagues in the province and also here in Port Moresby.
Just a follow-up to that. Intelligence, as you know, it's your business, yourselves and the RPNGC. Intelligence is only useful if it is obtained and used quickly, and it comes back to getting some clarity on the question asked by Honorable Pukatemo. Do you have a mechanism that can, between all of you, given that obviously all of you're in the same kind of business but in different areas? I'm just concerned that is there a way, or would you recommend again a mechanism that would help you to say share intelligence quickly and timely? Because if we find out someone has the information about an attack at a polling site or whatever, or there's a planned event happening, and the event occurs and then we get the information later, then obviously it's useless. So is there such a mechanism? If not, do we have the ability to build something like that so that all of you can share and respond? What's stopping us from doing that?
I'll just answer and also probably defer to the acting commissioner to say a few words. So under the NIO and now the Prime Minister's department, the creation of a national security agency, if you like. And so what has happened is each of the security agencies and our intelligence elements have been assigned to form a joint intelligence group, and that group is kind of has all the security agencies, intelligence people working together. So that's something that I think we took from the experience of our APEC, hosting of APEC in 2018. So this will provide the kind of the platform for us to share information, and then we are better posted to respond to events before they actually happen. So that jig has been established, and it's now is in force. We've assigned people to that, and I think they're working out of Oakley House. For us, one of the best opportunities for us, because of law, we can't execute even if we have information. So we have to share with police, and if it's a situation that they will require our help, then they have to request, so that we are lawfully allowed to take part in such operation. And the current Kumul 23, as mentioned by the acting commissioner, based out of Mendi, they seem to be doing the kind of work that is highly intelligence driven, and they are doing targeted operations where they've received information, cycled it, analyzed it, and then used it for operation. So those kind of arrangements are useful for us, because then we are called out and it's okay for us to assist the police to execute some of these tasks with regard to weapons and cases where they are located.
Thank you. Oh, Deputy Commissioner.
Chair, I think to answer your question regarding the intelligence sharing, I think some things have worked, some of them. From our operational experience, I think working closely with the defense, we've shared information. While the JIG apparatus and the intel are being created, the effectiveness are yet to be realized, but at the ground level, I think we've shared information. Normally, coming back to Dr. Temosa, when defense does not come out, we write to NEC for them to be called out, and that's where we use them. I mean, not use them, we work closely, but intelligence sharing, it's currently ongoing. What we've done in program, that some news we've not disclosed, but from the arrest that we've effected, it's basically on intel-driven ops shared by the defense and police. So very effective, and going forward, I think we'll build up from that experience, sharing between partners we trust. Some things, information too, like the chair said, information is useful if you make use of it. Some of these meetings take 2 weeks. We need actions to be taken in that split of within certain time frames, and that's been proven effective, and we'll continue that going to the elections. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. One of the things that I'm concerned about is, and no disrespect to the RPNGC, I think all of you are, given the enormous law and order issues around the country, you're always at the forefront every single day. Even in the city, there's tribal fights going on almost daily, and it's in your face all the time as the RPNGC. And I wanted to ask this because the elections might be a one-off event, but when it happens, it's a huge logistical exercise. You yourself said there might be 12,000 security personnel involved. When that happens, it adds an additional strain to your capability. And apart from having the PNGDF as a backup, you need kind of to have this brain sitting at the back that's coordinating all of that. That's not so much in the front line. And this is where I think, just me listening to, and this is not the first time we've come across this gap in intelligence. This arrangement that you have now, that's mentioned by Brigadier Opa, where you've got like a national security apparatus now kind of set up somewhere in Mosby. Is that now going to be the way going forward? And if so, how is it resourced, and is it effective? Maybe I come back to you, Brigadier Opa, because you're sort of ready to say something there.
Chair, JIG, the current construct of JIG is kind of still a work in progress, but ideally the JIG should not be an agency that sort of involves itself in policy things. If it's going to be an operational platform, that it should have that as its mandate. But under a policy or a legislation, I don't know. But I think it should be for operations. That way, whatever information is collected and analyzed is quickly disseminated to relevant security agencies to execute in their own areas. So, and that worked in APEC, and I think that's the best approach for it.
Thank you. Deputy Commissioner, you want to add something to that before I move on? Okay, thank you. We now come to the Electoral Commissioner, and I'm smiling because I have to say, Ms. Wagi, you know, I speak on behalf of the whole country. Your actions in relation to the elections going on in Day is very pleasing, I have to say. It's been a long time since we've seen the constitutional powers of the Electoral Commissioner being used. So I want to commend you. You know, wearing my other hat as the Deputy Chair of the Gender Equity and Women's Empowerment Committee, I'm very proud to see a woman stepping up. And I said this on social media, and I'll repeat myself. Sometimes it takes a woman to do the things that men cannot do. So I think all the women in this country are very proud of you, and I think men as well. And I want to commend you on behalf of the people of this country. It's really pleasing to see public servants stepping up and doing their mandated roles. We were very disappointed with your predecessor. I have no idea what they're going to do in terms of your appointment. My personal point of view is that I hope you've applied for the job of the Electoral Commissioner. I think many Papua New Guineans are hoping you've applied for that job. And you know, this is what we'd like to see. We'd like to see the powers that are in the Constitution to protect the rights of our people, particularly when it comes to elections, being exercised by someone who knows what those limits are. I understand you've worked under several electoral commissioners, so you're highly experienced. You've grown up in that agency, obviously. So that's my introduction. Now, you've heard, and you've obviously, you know, my first question, have you read our report?
Thank you, Chairman, Honorable Allenbed, Deputy Chairman, Honorable Pukatemu, and Honorable Kit Iduho. Firstly, let me take this time to thank Chairman and the team for allowing us to be here to participate in this very formal discussion, as well as a very important agenda for the elections come 2027. I also want to take this time to thank you also for the commendation. As Papua New Guineans, we strive to do our best for our country. So, as acting electoral commissioner and in accordance to the Constitution and organic law, we had to apply some firm decisions on issues that arose during the by-election, and that will set the pace for 2027. Thank you. In line with the SPC recommendations that was provided in the report after 2022 elections, when you look at the first recommendation, that was recommendation 2 on election administration, what we have done to strengthen internal accountability and mechanisms in the Electoral Commission. We have improved systems now with monitoring and evaluation systems in the organization, focusing more on outcome-based reporting. We also have done a nationwide performance outputs in conjunction closely with the PNGEC MNE framework with our election managers, assistant election managers, also the headquarters. So those are some accountability mechanisms that we have taken forward to improve the administration process in elections. We also have gone forward in discussions on the election advisory group. I've met up with TIPNG in formal discussions, and also with Ombudsman Commission, and maybe another team member that's still outstanding to discuss with, maybe a judge or another elite that we may look at coming soon. But in preparation for the 2027, we are looking at the election advisory group, which we will formalize soon. The recommendation 3 on the increase on electoral commissioners from 1 to 5, that we still discussing, looking at allowing more discussions in the provinces to work closely with the provincial election committees. We have advisory committees to improve coordination in the field with the election process. The roles and responsibilities of election.
If I may interrupt
Yes.
you first, just so you know, in our recommendation 3 to increase the number of electoral commissioners, our reason for going down that road is basically because we saw a lack of use of authority by previous electoral commissioners. We saw that weakness. Obviously, when you came along, that weakness was no longer a weakness. So I just wanted to clarify that so you understand why that decision was made. You know, you had things like special declarations and all those kind of things which, you know, obviously diminished the, I guess, the trust that people had in the Electoral Commission to do its job. So I just wanted to outline that for you so you understand why we made that recommendation, because we felt that the decision making at the time was too much for one person, so we had to spread it. And suddenly you came along and we realized that you sometimes you don't need too many people to make these decisions. I mean, when we visited Australia and we met the electoral commissioner there, he was one man. He's able to make a decision, or you know, with elections across a very large country. And you watch him speaking to the members of parliament, you know, the parliamentary committee there, and he was very confident. The first thing he said to the Australian Parliamentary Committee, he said, "I'm proud to inform you that our democracy is functioning well, and we were able to deliver a very successful election." I mean, this is the commissioner telling the members of parliament. So for us, we wanted to find a way to, I guess, design out the weaknesses that we saw in our process. Sorry for interrupting you. You may continue, but I just wanted to make that point for your benefit.
Chairman, thank you. Yes, working towards the provincial election committees, the steering committees, which consist of the PA or the deputy PA as the chairman, and the other key stakeholders like the PPC, the NBC, and other coordinating partners in the province. So that's where we are focusing on to strengthen more of that work coordination in the province. We also looked at the interagency coordination. That's the recommendations from 5 to 7 to mandate and strengthen the IDEC of whole of government approach. So we had our first meeting, which I chaired in the second week of February this year. So we're looking at allowing fortnightly meetings or otherwise monthly meetings until we get closer to that. So not only IDEC, but we've also consulted TIPNG, civil societies, and other agencies like Finance and Treasury, which we're working very closely with, and that security, police, which are our key partners. We also have started our election planning. Chair and deputy chair member have also set out the tentative dates out to IDEC already. The approval has been given by the Governor General for the tentative election dates, which we have already given the approval to announce. So whilst you are here, we can give the dates for the 2027 national election. Issue of writs will be on the 29th of April, 2027. Nominations will close on the 6th of May, 2027. Polling commences on the 26th of June. End of polling on the 9th of July, and we should retain the writs on or before 30th July. So that's the tentative timetable which Governor General has approved. So in the interagency coordination and planning meeting, we've already distributed those dates to the IDEC members. The third recommendations, 10, 13 to 17, the voter registration and ID. We've commenced working on the voter registration in 2024 into 2025 in the Electoral Commission. So the latest updated roll was used in the 2025 LLG elections. We also have gone a bit one step further doing the pilot photo rolls that was done in Motokoita, one of the Motokoita wards in Tatana, using the photo to capture the photos of all the voters. So that worked well. We produced a rollout of the photo roll, which was used in the elections last year. We also have worked closely with NID in identifying voters, because in our Form 11 we have a space there for NID number. So when the voter goes in, at least we have a NID number captured to identify the voter. We also have, during the by-election in New Island, captured photographs of voters in the KVN urban, and it worked out well. So going forward, that's the strategy for PNGEC, to concentrate on the roll starting next month. Our programs will start next month into June, July, and we want to have a preliminary roll by November 2026. So those are the critical areas and timeline that we've set for 2026. The biometrics, which was talked about as well, we've in close consultation with DICT, we're looking at how we can, through the biometrics, to capture voter, the fingerprints, and so that application has been now discussed between two agencies. But the directive by government to allow for NCD and 7 Highlands provinces, we've into discussion on that. We've the 25th October workshop on the biometrics that was held last year. We got about 6 of those vendors there. We gone through the proposals. Out of 2, we've looked at 2 now to decide whether they can produce for NCD and the 7 Highlands province. So that's discussion in place now, looking at the funding availability to start working on how we can manage. Maybe give priority to NCD and the 7 Highlands provinces soon. So. And looking at the voter education, the recommendations 3251, we also have our plans for next month to roll out the civic awareness. We also have consulted NBC. We'll be signing a MOU shortly with them for the voter education. And also we allowed for training for security personnel. That's recommendation 11 and 66. In our plans to allow this to take place maybe towards the 3rd quarter or 4th quarter. So new security personnel who have been recruited into the police force or defense force can go undergo some training on the election process and procedures. And funding and procurement, recommendation 38 to 41. We've submitted budgets to Treasury and Finance. So we've been given 50 million for this year. So we're hoping they give us the funding next month so we can start procuring. What we have done, we have advertised the expression of interest, and we've collected all the applications from our service providers, doing an assessment now. As soon as the funding comes, we'll start procure big ticket items like ballot boxes, seals, inks, and ballot papers as well. So that's where we are with funding and procurement.
While you're there, can I interrupt you for a second? You say you were given 50 million to start getting organized for the 2027 elections. How much did you ask for?
We submitted a budget of 404 million, but out of that, 50 million was given.
Are you saying that in order to be prepared for the election in 2027, you needed 400 million this year?
Yes, basically what our plans looked at is like from January to December, maybe first 290 can come and the remaining maybe next year for our training and into But 404 million also contain the biometrics requirements as well.
Can I just pause you there for a minute and come to Secretary Oeke? Secretary, in terms of, obviously your agency formulated a budget. What were your justifications for not giving them the full amount that they needed to? Because obviously our recommendations, our findings were that one of the reasons why we struggled with the 2022 elections was the lack of timely funding for the Electoral Commission. Now they asked you, listening to Ms. Vagi, she says they need 190 million this year too, of the 400 odd million, and you've only given 50. What's your justification for that?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much. We all know that the budget is an institution, and it has a certain timetable. And so when when Department of Treasury prepares a national budget, for example, if we are going to prepare for the 2027 budget, there will be a circular that goes out. We give each agency in terms of the appropriation ceiling, and so you work within that provision. So last year, we sent out.
Can I, while you're there, who determines this ceiling? Do you determine it, or does someone else determine what that ceiling is? For example, for the Electoral Commission, who determines that ceiling?
We determine the aggregate ceiling, aggregate level.
We, as in
Department
your
of Treasury.
department?
Right, correct.
Okay.
And this is based on information that how we anticipate the revenue collection would come in. Two, in terms of making sure that critical expenditures continue to be funded. So these are ceiling that stands out. So let me just get back to what we have done. So in last year, a circular went out, and we expected all agencies to submit their bid by what we call, the date was 28th of August. Now, Department of Treasury, and we all know that election is coming up, and according to the report, we need to make sure that there is sufficient allowance of appropriation or a ceiling given there. So in that point, we made sure that there's close to about 250. This is on a guesstimate. Well, again, we need agencies responsible to submit the details of their bid. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get that, the bid coming in at that time. So again, it's really Department of Treasury can make available, but it really depends on the details of whatever submission.
So let me understand you correctly. Your department had a ceiling of 250 million for the Electoral Commission, and they did not submit their, and I know you were not the acting commissioner at the time, so don't take this personally. So you're saying that the Electoral Commission did not submit for the ceiling that you had already allocated for them. Is that what you're saying, on time?
That's correct. We did not have any submission coming in on that, and therefore we tried to allow for that.
And that's the reason why you gave them 50 million instead of what they needed.
It goes through the process, I guess so.
Thank you, Secretary. Back to you, Ms. Vagi. You were speaking
funding.
about recommendation 42.
Yes. The national planning and funding for the 2027 national elections. We've commenced our budgetary process and procedures now to put all our plannings together with the budget, and we hope to submit the 2027 budget to national planning by March. And the 2027 budget is mainly for the training awareness and into the polling and counting. So the cost will be centered around 500 mil, as I mentioned earlier in the meeting. So that's where we are.
That's for next year?
That's for next year.
So the 50 million you have this year, are you confident that that is sufficient for you to prepare and also to sort out the electoral roll?
I guess that may not be enough. We may need another additional 50 because looking at the procurement processes and procedures and the costs of purchasing big ticket items is now with the inflation that has arose, it will require more additional funding for procurement. And also the roll work, looking at it in 3 phases. We put where the first phase we go out to audit the roll, and the second phase we display it for them for voters to come and also capture their photos. We're looking at photographs as well for the roll and displaying it, and the third phase where it's been displayed for those who have missed out and those who have not enrolled. So the photograph is an important part of this roll, an improvement to the last electoral roll where you capture the photo of the person and that photo is held against the name. So you identify the voter very clearly with the face to a name. Now we have the roll only with the name, with the listing.
Secretary Treasury, I'd like you to make a note of that. Obviously, as a committee, our interest is to ensure that we don't face the same problems that we faced in 2022, and regardless of whatever incompetence led to the Commission not submitting their budget on time for you to take into consideration. I'd like you to make a note and take it to the Treasurer and impress to him the importance of properly funding the elections this year. He might come from a peaceful electorate in New Ireland, but we are talking about the whole country here. And therefore, I would like to respectfully ask you to speak to him and to relay to the NEC the needs of the Electoral Commission if we want to avoid the situations that we were faced with in 2022. So please make that note. Ms. Vagi, you may continue.
Can I just at that point, since before the thought evades my memory, we're talking about 50 million, not with the Electoral Commission, but it's been allocated, correct?
Mr. Iduhu, yes, the 50 million is with the PIP. It's with national planning at the moment.
How much of that 50 million have you since received since the accounts opening?
None, nil, zero balance. We haven't received anything.
So you're preparing for a major logistics exercise in less than 12 months' time, and you still do not have anything, no money to prepare yourself. And we're talking about preparations.
Yes, that will be important if Treasury can also consider importance of the procurement processes and also the delivery of all those big ticket items to the provinces. So it's very critical now that we need some of that money as soon as possible to start all our procurement and the distribution process. You know, you have provinces like Teleforming out in the mountains, 3 forms of transport to get there. Kontindanga in Gulf Province, Maramuni in Enga Province. So those are the difficulties for procuring. You know, some of them we have to pay for the shipment, for air charters, and they're quite expensive. The choppers now, 5,000 an hour or 15,000 an hour.
Can I come in?
Thank you.
Ms. Baghi, Secretary Treasury, I'm sure that under the Public Finance Management Act and our national procurement processes and the legislations, this big event called a national election has to have provisions. And we've had complaints after complaints about late release of funds, procurement delays, etc., etc. In preparation for the 2027 elections, can both of you and IDEC come back to this committee and advise this committee what are you going to do to delay the procurement processes, invoking the provisions of the Public Finance Management Act and the National Procurement Act. There are provisions there. Why aren't you? Isn't IDEC there for you to talk to each other? You're in the next IDEC meeting, please prepare something for this committee and come and say, these are the funding delays, we are going to address them. Electoral Commission is asking for another 100 million. This is how we're going to address it. Come back with the answers. We want to stop hearing you complain. You are the managers of the processes. You have to tell the country, how are you going to manage this? You've done the plans. The key agency to conduct this most important event in this country has requested certain amounts, but delays have been made, but you got authorities under the law that you can invoke. Come and tell this committee, how are you going to prevent delays? Are you going to issue certificate of inexpediencies, which are provided to the two forces so that they procure their vehicles early, communication systems early, etc. All those things that are needed to make the election better than 2022.
Ms. Wagi, you may continue. I think we have, and we may come back and visit the issue of funding, but you've had the deputy elaborate very strongly on, and we understand and appreciate, because we are the ones dealing with or tasked with delivering a better election. So if you can continue, and I think we are down to recommendation 67 and 69.
Yes, I think that's about all that we have for the SPC recommendations on PNG's preparedness on addressing those recommendations that were outlined in the report. Yes. Thank you, Chair.
We had some recommendations on the improvements to electoral laws and anti-corruption frameworks. Those were in recommendation 67 and 69. Would you care to comment on those ones, please?
Yes, some of those recommendations, we're looking at the review of some election forms, like the nomination forms that will outline the criteria for nomination. So at this moment, it's quite sketchy on the type of person that needs to go and nominate, setting out criteria, reviewing the form itself. We also looked at the CLRC report that was done in 2019, the consultation. It captured most of the electoral reforms that are still being not attended to. I think they're still with Legislative Council, I'm not too sure, but those were most of the reforms that we captured during the consultation with CLRC on electoral reforms, and more to do with biometrics, maybe a piece of legislation that will allow, but at the moment it's for voter identification in biometrics as well. So those are some reforms we are looking at to improve the electoral processing for the future.
Yes, so ma'am, while you're discussing biometrics, can you tell us what groundwork has been done in relation to the Electoral Commission, hoping, or whoever it is hoping to roll out this biometric voting?
Yes, thank you, Member. What we have done so far is the first workshop that was conducted last year, 25 October. We have gathered some proposals from 6 vendors, and we've trimmed down to 2 that may have met the requirements. We also have gone as far as inviting those 2 vendors to our workshop last week, where we had all the election managers and the assistant election managers for them to display to us what they can produce. So we are at the moment on trying to negotiate on how we can continue this moving forward. The biometrics, as you can see, the current photo roll that we've done, it captures the photo face. That's a biometric feature as well. So when you move from the facial, we can slowly move in the voting component of it. Now it's actually identifying the person first.
Yes.
So as you move into the next phase of it, that's where you will be allowing the person to vote using their fingerprints.
In your professional objective view, do you think it's realistic to roll out at this point in time for the country?
Looking at it at this moment, I guess NCD may be the first place where we can start with accessibility to infrastructure and the internet connectivity. Everything's in Port Moresby here. All the other provinces, maybe the urban areas, maybe an urban LLG or ward in the 7 Highlands provinces. So not to cover the whole province, but as we start small with one urban LLG and urban ward and move into the rest of the other.
So you think a progressive approach in
Yes.
implementing this system would be advisable, huh?
Yes. Yeah, by 2032, we may have the whole biometrics in most provinces or all provinces in the country.
Especially, given your budgetary status, with only being allocated 50 million, none of which you've received as at the date of this conversation. Being a realist, going forward, you think we are not ready for that yet as a mass exercise?
Yes, as a mass exercise, not at this stage, but we can start small in maybe Motokoita electorate and then move into the other 3 electorates in NCD and 1 urban LLG in the Highlands.
You mentioned some vendors. Are you at liberty to share who those vendors were?
Yeah, we had them in the biometrics workshop. They're in country.
In country?
Yes.
They're local vendors?
Yes, local vendors. So we still have some discussion with them on our requirements to firm up everything.
Thank you.
Thank you, member.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Ms. Vagi, the Acting Electoral Commissioner. Once again, I want to associate myself with the Chairman's commendations on you. Congratulations for your appointment as Acting Electoral Commissioner, as well as the great responsibility that is on your shoulder, but already you have commenced steadfastness, complying with the laws that you are administering, so congratulations on your steadfastness is making sure that the laws that you administer are effective. And also I want to commend you for the planning that you have already done. You announced the dates on the issue of the REITs and the return of the REITs. Also, you are planning for by November 2026, the common rule should be finalized rather than like the last election. We were preparing it in the election year. And so I commend you for that, and also commend you for strongly communicating with the provincial level, because we felt as a committee that if the provincial election managers are well organized and structured and resourced, much of these issues can be managed very well by the PPC and the PA and this committee. If we resource them well, I'm sure they can do their jobs. And so I commend you for focusing also on supporting the provincial teams that are under your care. I want to start with asking you some practical questions so that you can respond. With regards to the integrity of the electoral roll, for example, in Abau, in my electorate, if the common roll shows that there are 30,000 eligible voters, and you issue 30,000 ballot papers. If the voting shows that there are 50,000 ballot papers rather than what you have on record, would you invoke your powers to declare that a failed election? Because they've gone beyond, where there are many examples in the older elections that we have had, that the numbers of voters go past what is, and therefore, would you be pushing for voting to be legal? We have to make sure that it's compulsory. When you are on the common roll, you must vote. And if for example, there is a voting number that exceeds the legal amount, then would you, I recommend as a member of the committee that such instances, that particular election should be declared failed, for example. The other issues that's one. The other issues we were confronted with was, for example, and this was shared by both the police commissioner and the former chief of the PNG Defense Force. And that was the candidates themselves and their supporters were the main causes of the problems in terms of the security. That was very, very clear. For example, the candidates are the ones that are starting the violences. They issue guns around the place, or they go and collect the ballot papers and they go and mark them under the house or somewhere. In those instances, and I'm glad that you mentioned that in NCD and 7 Highlands provinces, you are paying special attention, because these are the areas that we have identified as the committee. There are forms that are filled, and then they are filling them in and there are video evidence of that, and nobody is declaring them failed elections. Would you be able to do that? If, for example, a candidate is provoking violence and there's evidence by the personnel at the polling site, would you then immediately declare that you cannot be allowed to continue? Whether it's campaign or not, that candidate is declared cannot be a no more candidate. Those type of things we must do, because these are the things that are happening on the ground and giving headache to our security personnel. The candidates themselves that behave badly and the supporters that behave. And therefore, we as a country, can we look at some of these things, or we move amendments to the laws quickly, and we are responsible as legislators, we would want to move some of these things. We need more penalties. We want to give the Electoral Commission powers, for example, to immediately declare, for example, that your election in this electorate has failed. It's a failed election. Powers that you have. So some of those things we have to do, because these are the realities. Third one, and then I'll allow you to talk. Third one is, from my experience, one of the most expensive security issues is looking after these ballot boxes. These ballot boxes, we have to find an answer. All these ballot papers are in the ballot boxes. For example, me in Aba, I'm carrying them down from Agao, from the mountains, and the Electoral Commission officers are coming down to Nunumai, and then they're waiting for the dinghy at Margarita, and then my security and police security, everybody's waiting with their dinghies, come all the way to Kupiano. They stop at Domara, and we accompany to the police station, and we lock them up. So every candidate has a security officer sleeping outside the police station. Counting is delayed by 1 week. Somebody has to feed them. These are the realities. So the issue of ballot boxes and ballot papers, isn't there an answer? Modern IT systems, aren't they available now? What is what would you recommend to the committee to address, for example, those issues of overvoting, candidates and supporters criminally charged during the election process, and this ballot box issue? And then counting takes 2-3 weeks. Somebody's already counted and declared before the voting takes place in another electorate nearby. Can we prevent these things? So somebody, for example, in the last election, the Prime Minister was declared early before voting happened in the other electorates. Why was this allowed? And then everybody's now voting for Pangu now, because Prime Minister won his Mary Ground. And so I thought I'd mention some of these issues here in the hearing, so that the US, now the boss of this important organization, you need to respond to some of these things to give comfort to the country as we are coming to the election. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Yes, that's a very critical questions that you have raised, and looking at the way going forward. First, the first question on the number of ballot papers is more than the number of enrollment. Usually what we do, we issue ballot papers according to the number of voters on the roll, on the enrollment form. So that's one. That's how the distribution is done. The issues with candidates and supporters, if there is an amendment to the organic law or the organic law on the leadership codes, those responsible candidates who contest for election, I guess there should be an amendment to disallow them to contest future elections, if they are part of the issues during the election. Yes. So during the election, if in reality the issues on hijacking the process where ballot papers have been marked by one person, if there's evidence provided, now we have mobile phones, so that evidence can be seen to be given to us quickly on the dot during polling. That's when we determine to make decisions. But looking at analyzing critically the polling throughout the respective LLG, there's polling in each ward. So if one ward has polled well, allowing voters to stand in queue and have that democratic right to cast their own ballots, that seems to be okay. But when it goes to 3-4 wards where you find that the ballot papers have been marked by individuals under the house or under the tree, the presiding officer must be held responsible for allowing that box to be counted, unless we get early notification on people who report this to us early. So those are issues that we face. Evidence has to be shown, given to us to make the decision. But if 70% is done by someone else, one individual, then let's look more likely a failed election where people were not able to cast their votes.
Yes.
I'm very interested in what you've just said now. Like most Papua New Guineans, I think in the last, say 20 years, those who have become of voting age, they've probably never heard of an electoral commissioner who uses their powers to disallow votes. And you've just done that or disallow the counting of votes from a certain area based on evidence that you've received. Now you've just exercised those powers, and I think most Papua New Guineans are quite stunned. Could you elaborate, now that we've got you speaking to this committee, and I'm sure the media will pick it up and others, so that again, part of our role as a committee is to educate our people on what their rights are under law, and of course to prevent bad behavior from candidates and supporters. So could you elaborate on that one for the benefit of our people who might be tuning in to listen, in terms of the powers you have to disallow those kinds of votes?
Yes, under the Constitution, and the organic law on national and local level government, it gives the individual voter the right to go and you mark your ballot paper and you cast it in the ballot box. We don't allow people to allow one person to mark votes for them. That's not democracy. That's not the process. The process allows you to go to a polling booth, you pick up your ballot paper from the presiding officer, you go to the polling booth, you mark your three choices and you go and place it in the ballot box. So that's the process.
Just so we're clear, what if someone can't read or write? What do the rules say about that?
If someone cannot read and write, they can get their immediate family, someone who is trusted, to go and help them to mark the ballot paper. So that's allowed in the law. Or otherwise, the presiding officer who is trusted can help the.
And you are responsible as the commissioner, or acting commissioner in this case, for exercising those laws.
Yes.
Okay, you may continue.
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask a question in relation to earlier we were discussing security adequacy. So this can be answered. It needs to be answered both by yourself, and in the case of police personnel or security personnel, perhaps the acting commissioner can assist. In your experience, if I may add, how many polling teams are there in the entire country out of the 120 electorates? What's the aggregate number, full number of polling areas or polling teams?
Thank you, member. For now, going forward to 2027, we have 6,912 wards, and we have 374 LLGs, and that's about 5.6 million voters in the country. So when you are looking at allocating 500 voters to a team, you will have about 12,000, roughly around 12,400 teams. And that's our basis of planning now going forward into 2027.
There are 12,400 teams deployed across the nation to carry out the election.
Yes.
So one team would be responsible for a polling area, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
So in the team you have 8 officials.
8 officials. Now, in terms of logistics, Ms. Acting Commissioner, can you tell us the total number of personnel, police personnel, security personnel, do you contemplate on deploying in the elections to each of these in this entire exercise?
Last election was 10,000 plus on top of my. This year we will increase to 12,000 plus.
That works out to be one policeman to one polling team.
One policeman to one polling unit. We have roving teams also, the support unit that provide support, so they do coverage.
They come and go. They're
Yes.
sort of like mobile.
Yes,
They're
mobile.
not even in the polling areas. So, thank you. The reason why I raised this, I asked the question, is that security is a real issue. It's always an issue in the highlands. And due to lack of funding or whatever it is, you've been just kind to say there could be one policeman or one security personnel per polling area. And this is why I asked the question earlier of ratio. In remote locations where warlords are rife, there's almost no law or order. People carry around firearms in the masses. So ballot capture is a high probability because you have people standing around there with automatic firearms, and not one, not two, like 10 or 20 of them in each polling area. The police and the defense are deploying 1 or 2 to each polling area. What are the chances that the people are going to stand in a queue and pick up the paper and ballot and vote democratically? Is this a concern, you think?
It's a concern, the chances are high. But when I say 10,000 plus, I'm talking about the reserve, the regulars, but we have stepped up with the reserve who can support. And overall, we have roving teams for the security forces, so we focus on one province. So particularly the last election, we moved personnel. The local police are stationary to guard the ballot boxes after polling, but we have teams to cover polling places, so they move from province to province. So it's not one province or the same polling for all the same provinces. So that's why we sequence polling. So we move, security forces move where the ballot boxes are. So we have security force on the ground, adequate numbers before the polling starts.
Yeah, but we still have a situation, in fact, as a matter of fact, we still have ballot books being captured or hijacked because of the overpowering of security personnel, notwithstanding one-day voting, notwithstanding a sequenced approach. Do you think you should be given more resources to even triple or quadruple or even to 10 to 20 personnel per polling team?
We should.
I think you should. I think it's highly recommended that for a free, fair and safe election, not only just in the highlands but even in the coastal areas, security personnel has to be, the ratio has to be, commensurate the risk exposure, if you like. But it's a real issue. This is why some election petitions never end until the next writ is issued.
Unfortunately, yes, I agree, sir.
While we have you, what's our response to electoral offences? I know, I'm not sure if we prosecuted any from the last election, and if we have, maybe you can give us some statistics. What is our approach, and I'm speaking as government, to those who commit election offences, and have we clearly defined those?
Chair, I think we have prosecuted some electoral offences. Some have fallen through because witnesses have not come forward to give evidence, or they have indicated support in the initial process but back off during the process. So most of the election-related offences are done by the police officers at the station, not so much of the supporting team that goes into the province. So it goes back, but in I think 2 or 3 cases, from my understanding, the witnesses that should have come forward and supported police investigations or the continuance of the process have failed to support. But there are some instances where we've progressed through with the constant support and funding. Particularly, this is another entire process on its own, but it's a continuous process. Delay in courts, particularly when we hear this election petition.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we are coming near the close, and I'm going to put each of you on the spot. I'll start with you, Deputy Commissioner. And having said that, given some of the issues we've identified today, we will most likely call you again for another question and answer session, just so that one of the reasons we have, and I wanted to explain that, is to assure our people out there who, so that they can be informed that, look, we are concerned about these processes, and we are trying to ensure that they all get this opportunity to participate in the elections, and we are all interested in making sure that the outcome of 2027 is better than in 2022. And I think that's the message that we want to get out to our people. So we will be calling you back perhaps in 3 or 4 months' time, once I consult with my colleagues. But having said that, Assistant Commissioner, what would you say to our people who are about 2027 elections, in your judgment? And I know you can't speak for the Commissioner, but on behalf of the Constabulary, do you think you people are ready to carry out this massive exercise? I mean, just listening to what Ms. Vagi has contributed, 12,400 polling teams, 8 people, that's like you're moving 100,000 people, personnel, to conduct this election. That's a massive exercise. I don't think we do this too often. So we just do this. So once every 5 years, 100,000 human beings are deployed to carry out this massive exercise. That's no small feat, and that's something that needs a lot of planning and a lot of confidence. It's something you've done before, but I'm sure every year it gets more difficult. So what would you say to our people? Are you confident that the police are ready? The RPNGC is ready to carry this out, and we won't be expecting the same problems that we had in 2022?
Thank you, Chair. We are confident. RPNG is confident to deliver the election 2027 safe and secure, with support from other partners. But we are learning from the experience of 2022 and taking steps to mitigate some of these problems. But we are confident 2027 will be much better and much safer than 2022.
Have you been adequately resourced, or are you expecting to be adequately resourced?
We are expecting to be adequately resourced for this exercise, and even we have committed our recurrent some of the PIP budget for this exercise. So we are prepared for this exercise. Thank you.
Brigadier Opa, the same question to you. Are you confident? Is the PNGDF confident of supporting your supporting role in delivering a better election in 2027?
Defense Force will be ready, and to our people, I think the message, again, I'm not speaking on behalf of the commander who's not present due to duty travel, but I think we urge our people that from our experience from previous elections, we will be better ready for this one. And if there are opportunities for you to abide by the law prior to the elections, I think you should take those measures so that during election, the environment will be conducive to allow a secure environment for our voters and free and fair elections. So we will be ready, and in consultation with our other state agencies in particular, I also think that our collaboration together will enable us to come up with better mechanisms of trying to address some of those issues that were raised. For example, dealing with polling in areas where untoward influence or illegal activities have taken place. And from our experiences in the previous elections, there are ways to deal with it. I think we just need to work together and make sure that whoever breaks the law must be prosecuted.
I want to ask.
Honorable Leader, yeah.
Sorry, I want to ask a question to the Secretary for Treasury. Mr. Waike, we've just heard from the Electoral Commissioner that notwithstanding an appetite for 250 million, and you've confirmed that there was no submission done at the time of budget formulation, and then therefore the apparatus responsible for budget formulation decided unilaterally to allocate 50 million for premised on whatever reference point or rationale. Now, we've just discussed a massive logistics exercise that is going to be confronting this organization immediately, in fact, in terms of preparations. Whilst 50 million is actually not enough, I can say safely, referencing other activities by the government thus far, what is the earliest point, as at present, can you release a warrant for 50 million to the Electoral Commission to get the preparations underway? Is it possible in the next 7 days?
Yes, thank you, Honorable Idhu. That's correct. In fact, starting of this year, I reached out to acting EC just to let her know that there are requirements for the release of funds, and that is your procurement, your cash flow, and your plans. So we have assisted her to ensure that she provided that information, and she did last week, and we are all in the process of releasing that 50 mil. But in doing so also, while I've taken the time here, they've submitted a cash flow, and a cash flow of about 174 mil. We will facilitate 50 immediately, but again, work within our overall appropriation, huge ceiling, to ensure that these funds are released, to make sure that the preparation are well in train. But also, whilst we're here, in 2022, we expanded close to about 1,054 million, so it's about $1 billion that we spend on delivery of the 2022 election. That's from the government alone. And so, just referencing to the 250, we try to make sure that at least some 20%.
Let me get some clarification there. Are you saying that over $1 billion kina was spent on the 2022 elections?
That's correct.
What billion?
It's about
1.1.
Roughly about 1.1, yes.
So 1.1 billion
Yes, correct.
was spent in the 2022 elections based on the outcome, the budget outcome, right?
That's correct.
So that would mean that the request from Ms. Bagi for 500 million plus 174 million this year is not unreasonable.
We're looking at preparatory aspects of that. At least you want to prepare.
So the country is looking at spending at least around 1.1 billion if we include police and other players, everybody together.
Yes.
We are looking at spending at least 1.1 billion on the elections.
Yes.
For next year.
At least we know the basis on which we are coming from.
Yes.
So based on that, we would expect as a committee that you have already released some of that money this year, or are in the process of releasing some of that money this year. At least half of it, I would think.
Again, we have to make appropriation, again, based on the particulars, right? And we have to be informed, okay, these are the components of the budget that we're required to.
I hear you,
Yes.
I hear you. All I'm saying is that we already know. It's a 1.1 billion kina exercise, at least. We know that. You know it, you just told us, so now we all know it. Therefore, it's reasonable to assume that we would be paying the same amount of money again, at least.
That's correct. But
So regardless of your technical issues, that's the sort of ballpark we are looking at as a country, right?
absolutely.
Okay. So all of your technical issues aside, warrants and budgets and all of that, how have you taken this into account? You know it's 1.1 billion. You've given them 50 million, maybe another 50 million hidden in their operational budget, maybe 10 or 20 million hidden in their operational budget. But we know, based on 2022, that is 1.1 billion at least is the ballpark. Okay. Now, based on knowing how projects operate, we would be expecting that at least a significant part of that money would be spent this year to get ready for next year. So I'm coming back to the question. Never mind your technical issues and all the stuff that you people need to do. We did this exercise in 2023 because we were expecting problems in 2027. So I put it to you, Secretary, that we can't be sitting here now hiding behind our processes, because the elections are impending. It's kind of like the grey list. We knew it was coming, but you pass na you go capside. Now with the elections, we know that it is a catalyst for conflict. You may look mantap lo highlands same time fight ikirap lo election and by entire people are displaced in the millions. They move down to the coast and they go and create other problems there. But the catalyst is always the elections. Now we are trying to prevent that in 2027. We want to give those people in some of these troubled areas some confidence that there will be a high level of security na behind lo election pinisian by igat peace lo hap. That's what we are trying to achieve as a country. I'm speaking on behalf of the state now. Therefore, I come back to you, and I understand, as bureaucrats, we like to have all these little silos that we build around why things don't happen. Now, we saw serious issues in 2022, and it is an indication of what might come. We've been warned by the Royal Papua New Guinea Constabulary and the PNGDF that they are expecting 2027 to be worse than 2022. I'm Yumi Savepinis, I'm Tumuna story now. So, I would like to urge Treasury, don't come and give the people of Papua New Guinea excuses as to why you couldn't do it. Also nubla something. It's not like you don't know that all of these agencies are going to need 1.1 billion. Benchmark I'm stopping this. Okay. We need everyone to get their act together. Because suppose problem may come up in 2027, some of the spillover effects of that, and by last longer time, they could destroy power pylons, which we know they've done before, burn down schools, more guns, health centers are set on fire. And these are things that we have to replace again. So, when we start to spend money to rebuild those things that have been destroyed, then cost belong beyond the election. So I put it to you, Secretary, I think you and your people, I see some of them sitting at the back to support you. You people should be taking a submission to the Treasurer to take to Cabinet to say, look, we are not spending enough now. And I don't know whether you can use the Public Finance Management Act powers, or you have to go back to Parliament to do a supplementary budget and cut back on some of the non-essential areas that you may have allocated money to. But I would suggest to you now that it is critical that you take actions now, so that by 2027 you may not pass my na go put on kena. Because if that happens, I think all of you sitting here, plus the country, we're all going to look silly. Because you misabi yet na you may gonna go put on. That's what I'm suggesting to you. We knew about these things 3 years ago. So we can't be providing explanations as to why we cannot. We have to be saying how we can do things so that we avoid those issues. That's what I'm suggesting to you, respectfully, Secretary. You can respond.
Thank you, Chairman. I think at the outset, I think what the committee has done right now, holding this, making this call makes a very good in terms of process to go forward, and for the first time to have this. So really appreciate that. I guess I think now that the EC has come back and provided now a detailed plan of expenditures where this will have to be planned out, that's very, very good on our side. I think in the absence of that, we try to make sure that we needed to provide something, and at least at a percentage of that, looking at what has happened in 2022. Now that the informations are now provided, I think EC also, with due respect, they had to conduct the LLG and the president elections at the time as well. So perhaps because of the capacity issues, they weren't able to provide this information. But mind you, I think at Treasury we try to make sure that agency, when they come and bid for the funds at the budget time, funds are limited, and so we try to get them to write down to itemize where you need to spend these funds. In the absence of that, we have competing other essential services that we need to provide. But the point is very well taken. Now that ECS and the other two agencies, now that they can be able to provide those details, plan of how they're going to expend that, then fair enough. We will work within that to making sure that adequate financing available, and the timeliness of this is critical as well. And I think hopefully that we deliver the 2027 election more successfully than probably we had in 2022. 22 we were coming out from the COVID out of 2021, so we had some financial situation where we tried to, I guess, going forward here to give some certainty back to the commission and to the committee as well as our people, is that we will give utmost best to making sure that their democratic is they exercise at the time of the election that comes about. So the points are well taken, and we'll facilitate on our end as much as possible to assist the Electoral Commission deliver us safe and successful 2027 elections. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary. Deputy, you got some more talk? You like make it?
No, Chairman, I think you summarized it very, very well. I think it's a responsibility of everyone, not only here, but I want to emphasize it's also the responsibility of the community. Our people, we have to be law-abiding. Please obey the laws of elections. There's no need for us to spend money on security. Look at what's happening day electorate now. If that can be repeated, for example, if there are things that are not according to law, Electoral Commission has the power to say this box cannot be counted, and people have voted. And if there's evidence that we have not followed the law, authorities we must see prosecution of those who are criminal charged during the elections. We haven't done those things, so we are seen as not a law-abiding country. And so I also appeal to our people throughout the country. Let's also support our security forces, our Electoral Commission staff, to make the election one of the best. We've just gone 50 years old now. This is first year of the next 50-year walkabout of our country. We need to become better and better. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Chairman and Deputy Chairman. I think I also join my colleagues in firstly thanking the panel this morning to answer these very crucial questions and areas that require attention of the government and the process of delivering a free, fair and safe national election. It is the single most critical, the single most biggest exercise in any democratic country that holds the democracy and the constitution that we all subscribe to. And it's highly imperative that the financial aspect, I believe, should be given the highest focus. And so listening to responses from the good Acting Commissioner for Police and the Brigadier General Opa in terms of security, it is the largest security deployment exercise in any country. The Australian system operates off the back of 3 commissioners. All three are former military or police, AFP, and they are they're very well versed with deployment of logistics, deployment of personnel, and conducting this election exercise. Even conducting a referendum requires this focus. So it's in terms of timing, and the report itself highlighted the absolute necessity for planning, and the elections will rise and fall on the strength or failure of planning. And so this is Secretary, I want to thank you and for your availing information readily and being cooperating and in fact dealing with the issues as they have arisen in terms of election preparations and quite far and beyond allocation. Reason has prevailed and common sense has prevailed, I really hope that within the next fortnight we can, the Electoral Commissioner will be happy to report back next time this committee sits that it actually happened within 7 days of that hearing that we received our 50 million. And it should, and why not? So I implore you and humbly that we should give this our utmost attention post this hearing. And Madam, thank you very much. I also join the chair and the deputy chair in the decisions that you've taken in the last, the current by-election. You know, discretion of the Electoral Commissioner, in my view, respectful view, is open in terms of primary counts. As post-primary counts, however, is the discretion ought to be limited and exercised with great care. And that is because by the time the primary counts are done and eliminations ensue, what happens is that, as you know, the ballot papers are now no longer in boxes, but they're in candidacies. So there is no telling where a particular paper originates from. So the discretion after the primary count, in my interpretation, ought to be limited. So the discretion from the box 1 to the final box of the conclusion is open for Electoral Commission to exercise, and you've done that fantastically. That's exactly how it should be conducted. 1. 2, when the eliminations occur, ensues, my respectful view also is that what should then happen is, because of the reallocation of ballot papers, discretion shrinks, follows it too. It should not be, it's not unfettered, and it should not be exercised freely. And so begs the question, you know, at what point? It's a matter of judgment, but I think those are the safer rules. And you've done a great job, and I think the country looks forward to a free, fair, and safe election, and that we have members of Parliament arriving in this House the same way everyone else does. So thank you very much for that, and I really hope that the powers that be will allow common sense to prevail in your appointments as well. Thank you very much.
I think everything's been said. I want to thank all of you, Deputy Commissioner Mitna, Secretary Oike, Ms. Vagi, Brigadier Opa. The country looks to your agencies and the support of others to deliver an acceptable, a highly acceptable democratic outcome in 2027. There have been questions hanging around the legitimacy of our elected leaders for some time, and those questions still remain. What we've seen in Day sees a return to that legitimacy, and I've always maintained that until we do things correctly, you know, there's got to be legitimacy in Parliament. There's got to be legitimacy in the rule of law. All of these things, if done together, will lead to our people respecting our democratic processes. I think we've lost that over the years. You know, I'm grateful that we now have a special parliamentary committee that is highlighting all of this. But beyond that, I want all of you to recognize that we are here to help you do your job to the satisfaction of our people. That's what we are here for. And if we don't set those foundations correctly leading to the 2027 elections, then we kind of fail the future. And that's critical. In Papua New Guinea, we see too many things going wrong. I'd like to see a few things go right. And, you know, seeing your contribution to this committee from the beginning to now seeing the commitment that all of you have provided gives me a level of confidence. And I want to say to all of you, you have, some of you have constitutional duties, constitutional responsibilities. And you need to, and you're also protected by the Constitution in exercising those roles. The important thing is to exercise them. And so I leave that with all of you, and as I said, we will be recalling you back, and in the next one, simply because we are leading up to the elections, and we want to keep our people informed of what is happening in your agencies in order to deliver that outcome that our people want. At the same time, you know, we want to announce to those who break the law regularly and feel that no one is coming after them, that there are now state institutions that are rising to the demand from, you know, the good people in our society about the need for law enforcement, about making sure that people are doing the right things, protecting not just the integrity of our elections, but the integrity of our institutions. And so that's our role. So with that, I thank you all very much for being very open and contributing, and we appreciate that. Secretary Treasury, I think you know that you've got a lot of work to do, same as you, Ms. Wagi. We will be making sure that you are all doing your jobs, and because as I said, if things go wrong in 2027, we're all going to look silly. And for me, I'd like to see some things go right. So thank you all very much. We've had you for quite a while, and you are now released from this duty. Please, there's lunch available, so I think we've got some reporters here, so you can feel free to go and you know, clarify some of the statements you've made here today. Thank you all very much. This session is now concluded.